G'day and welcome to the Yarra River, the lifeblood to Melbourne. As we head upriver on the south side, we have the Alexander Gardens. A feature of these gardens is the historic rowing boat houses and clubs on the banks of the river. Rowing is the oldest water sport on the river today. Behind the Alexander Gardens, further south, we have the Queen Victoria Gardens. The garden's most famous feature is the marble and granite sculpture of Queen Victoria, and opposite the Arts Centre is the floral clock display. This was donated in 1966 to Melbourne by a group of Swiss watchmakers. To the north on the left, we have a new inner-city park called Birrarung Ma. For the Wurundjeri people, Birrarung is the traditional name of the Yarra River, and the Wurundjeri word Ma refers to the mist that sometimes settles over the Birrarung. The total area of Birrarung Ma is about 8 hectares, or 20 acres, and it features Australian native plants of a contemporary formal design, with many public artistic sculptures around the park. The prominent 10-metre high sculpture on the riverfront is called Angel. The 16 colourful images on the sculpture symbolise different life forms. This was created by artist Deborah Halpin in 1988. To the south, adjoining the Alexander Gardens, is the King Domain Gardens. These gardens feature the Shrine of Remembrance War Memorial and the Sydney Myer Music Bowl Reserve. Sydney Myer Music Bowl is a multi-purpose outdoor venue space with covered stage. This is where the annual Christmas carols and many other theatrical shows and music concerts are hosted. The artists who have played here are varied and include the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, Neil Diamond, The Seekers, and all the way through to the harder rock artists like Metallica and our very own AC/DC. Over to our left is Melbourne Park, a sports and entertainment precinct with multiple surrounding world-class venues that enhances Melbourne's reputation as the sporting and entertainment capital of Australia. In 1988, Melbourne Park was opened hosting the major Grand Slam Australian Open, which is the first of the 4 major Grand Slam tennis tournaments hosted each year. The main arena is named after the famous and most successful Australian tennis player, Rod Laver. The arena has a capacity for 15,000 spectators and has a retractable ceiling. Tennis attracts crowds of over 800,000 who come to view the legends of tennis. Beyond the tennis arenas, you can see a large stadium surrounded by world record high light towers. Situated in Yarra Park is the iconic landmark, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, or MCG, built in 1853 to host regular cricket matches. Colloquially, it is referred to as the G. Over time, the MCG has had many upgrades. Today's seating capacity exceeds 100,000, and it's the largest stadium in the Southern Hemisphere. Nearly every weekend you will hear sounds of fanatical crowds cheering from this stadium. The G is the home ground of cricket, as well as being a major venue for the unique and exciting Australian version of football known as AFL. AFL, or the Australian Football League, is the most popular sport in Australia. Additionally, other sporting codes from soccer, rugby, as well as music concerts are hosted at the MCG. Apart from sport and music events, during World War II and the outbreak of the Pacific War from 1942 to 1945, the ground was also used to accommodate thousands of US military personnel. In 1986, Pope John Paul II also held Mass service at the G. In 1956, the ground hosted the opening ceremony of the 1956 Olympic Games, and later the 2006 Commonwealth Games. Swan Street Bridge, the building on the left was originally the Olympic pool that was built for the 1956 Olympic Games that hosted the swimming and aquatic events, which Australia dominated, winning a total of 8 gold medals in swimming. The design and engineering of this building was very innovative in its time. The massive ceiling was not supported by any pillars or columns. After the Games, years later, large glass panels were installed running from the ceiling straight down to make the building more user-friendly, and was nicknamed the Glass House. In recent years, the building has become the base for training and administration of the famous Collingwood Football Club. Past the Glass House is the Olympic Park Oval that was used for athletics. Today, it's the outdoor training ground for Collingwood Football Club. Next to the Olympic Park Oval is Olympic Park Stadium, home ground to the Melbourne City Soccer Club and Melbourne Storm Rugby Club. The building features a bioframe design and a geodesic dome roof, covering most of the seating. The exterior is covered by thousands of LED lights that are programmed to a variety of patterns and images, making for a spectacular sight at night. Looking back over to our right, we have the renowned Royal Botanic Gardens. Seeing it today, it's hard to imagine that it was once marshland and swamps. In 1846, about 94 acres of land was reserved for gardens. Today, around 5,000 individual plants and over 10,000 floral species are on display. If you are after tranquility, appreciate gardens, and after some spectacular picturesque scenery, then a visit to the gardens is highly recommended.
Beach Point.
Beach Point. There's the stadium. Just behind it.
Cricket.
Very Yarra.
See the boat?
Hey, look at the dog. See the dog with the stick. Like a box and the bag.
So happy.
Ahead of us is the attractive heritage-listed Morell Bridge. The bridge was named after Sir Arthur Morell, a prominent businessman, councillor, and the Lord Mayor of Melbourne from 1926 to 1928. This bridge was one of the very first large-scale concrete structures to be built in Australia. featuring cast iron ornamental rails and Victorian-style lighting that was introduced in 1938. A famous Australian was involved with the production of this bridge, Sir John Monash. Monash was a brilliant engineer who was involved with many structures in Australia. Monash was also a highly decorated and regarded general in World War I and accredited for saving thousands of lives. Monash University was named after him in honour of his services to Australia. Morell Bridge was originally built across land, not the river. The old course of the river ran out to the south through the Botanic Gardens, back out to north in front of this bridge, and then turned south again on the other side of this bridge. After Morell Bridge was built across land, the river course was straightened to flow under the arches. The lake in the gardens was part of the old river course. During the 1880s and 1890s, many sections of the river were straightened, widened, deepened, and riverbanks reinforced to alleviate regular flooding issues that Melbourne experienced. The highest recorded water level is 14 metres above present levels, and sections of the river had also swelled to approximately 330 metres in width. The early dirt roads of Melbourne were knee-deep in mud, and main streets had become raging rivers. There were amazing scenes of people rowing boats across Flinders Street in the Melbourne CBD. To alleviate flooding, many sections of the river have been straightened, widened, and deepened in many areas. Bridge, which opened in 1938. This bridge is often referred to as the Punt Road Bridge, named after the road that connects the south of the bridge that runs through South Yarra. Before this bridge was built, the punt service transferred people and livestock across the river, hence the name Punt Road. This bridge was named after Robert Hoddle, a land surveyor and renowned artist. In 1837, 2 years after the early settlers arrived, Robert Hoddle surveyed and aligned Melbourne's renowned square grid pattern of streets, creating the boundaries of Flinders to Lonsdale Street and Spencer to Spring Street. Hoddle designed wide streets, public footpaths, and very useful laneways. This design has served Melbourne exceptionally well considering its simplicity. Coming up on our left, we have the inner suburb of Richmond. From 1851 to the late 1860s, the Victorian gold rush period saw massive immigration, and Richmond became very popular with affluent settlers. By 1882, Richmond had become a city with a population of over 40,000, or almost 9% of Melbourne's population. On the right, we have the now densely populated suburb of South Yarra. In the 1940s, South Yarra became the retreat for the wealthy of Melbourne. Originally, there were mainly large mansions and gardens established in the area. But during the 1920s to 1930s depression years, most of the land was sold off in lots, and blocks of flats became a feature. Most of the water we are cruising on today is salt water, coming in from Port Phillip Bay. However, when it rains, the river can look quite cloudy, as fresh water mixes in with the soil that comes off the land. This cloudy fresh rainwater is lighter than salt water and floats on top. This is a natural occurrence for any urban river. What is unattractive when it rains is the man-made litter. To manage this litter, traps have been placed strategically in various locations along the river. Thanks to the efforts of the waterways authorities and volunteers, the river is one of the cleanest capital city rivers in the world today. Cremorne Railway Bridge opened in the 1860s. The bridge was named after the Cremorne Gardens that were established in 1853 and situated up to our left. The Cremorne Gardens were pleasure gardens, a place for dancing and dining and theatrical shows. A landing was established on the banks of the river, and many visitors travelled from the historical ferry terminal at Princess Bridge and arrived by boat. Boating excursions have always been popular, and travelling to Hawthorne Tea Gardens was another great destination and leisure activity in the past. Past the bridge to the north, you will see the prestigious Melbourne Boys High School. The 1920s building is a heritage-listed three-storey rendered brick building inspired by Gothic Revival-style architecture, which has a nickname, Castle on the Hill, based on its appearance and elevated position of the site. Entrance to the school is based on performance on an entrance exam, high academic and co-curriculum results. Ahead is Church Street Bridge. This very attractive bridge opened up in 1923. It was the second bridge to be built on this site, replacing a pre-existing single-arch iron bridge. The current Church Street Bridge is a reinforced decorative concrete bridge, with multiple arches running across and through three main arches supported by heavy pillars. The roadway on top of the arches connects Church Street on the left with Chapel Street on the right. The roadway running under the northern arch is known as the Monash Freeway, or M1, which opened in 1972. This major urban freeway links Melbourne CBD with the southeastern suburbs. It is 34 kilometres in length and used by about 180,000 vehicles a day. By now you would have noticed the floating boardwalk along the river. This path is very popular, used by pedestrians and cyclists, and is part of the main Yarra Trail that is about 35 kilometres in length, through many parks, gardens and bushes close to the river. This trail also connects with many other trails along the way. Herring Island, often referred to by its original name, Como Island. To the south of the island is Como House, adjoining Como Park. The house and landscaped garden areas were constructed in 1847, and Como House is regarded as Melbourne's most glamorous, stately colonial-style house. In 1952, the island was renamed to Herring Island in honour of a famous and great Australian, Sir Edmund Herring, who was the president of the Scouting Association. Sir Edmund was also a highly regarded and decorated soldier who served in both World Wars. We are now entering a man-made section of the river that was all land that originally adjoined the island. Coming up to the north of this island, looking through the elevated freeway, you can see the Burnley Depot, which serves as a base of the Waterways Management Team, Parks Victoria. This site is in fact the remains of what was a major basalt bluestone quarry, a popular building material in the early days. After the quarry had been abandoned, the artificial island was created in 1928 by cutting the outer bend of the quarry and allowing the quarry to flood. The cutting created this channel that runs through the north of this island, which is known as the Quarry Cut, effectively severing what was a large bend in the river and creating Herring Island. Shortly we will begin our journey downstream. In the 1990s, Herring Island was developed into an environmental sculpture park. Unique sculptures from prominent artists were added to enhance the island's natural and recreational attributes. The island's environmental attributes consist of indigenous forest and communities. The vegetation includes river red gum, silver wattle, manna gum, drooping sheoak, southern mahogany, speargrass, chocolate and bulbine lilies, and native everlasting daisies. As for the fauna that occupies this vegetation, there is a variety of birds: honey-eaters, woolly wagtails, cormorants, darters, kookaburras, magpies, wattlebirds and herons. Water birds such as the Pacific black duck, maned duck and dusky moorhens shelter and forage in the reeds. Possums, lizards and snakes are also found on the island. In terms of other fauna along the river, which is some 242 kilometres in length, 1/3 of Victoria animal species are found in the Yarra catchment area. There are over 190 species of birds, including birds of prey, songbirds and waterbirds, feeding, breeding and nesting. 10 frog species have been recorded making the Yarra River home. 16 reptile species are known to inhabit the river, including skinks and turtles. The Australian platypus, a semi-aquatic egg-laying mammal, are found further upriver. A study and survey in 2007 of fish in the Yarra at 43 sites recorded 10,000 fish and 22 species, which are a great sign of continuous environmental improvement. As for flora, there are more than 25 unique vegetation communities, supporting various plants, shrubs and flowers along the Yarra River, its many creeks and wetlands. The biodiversity of this ecosystem is truly amazing. As we are heading back, it's time for a break, and we will pick up the commentary again a little further down the river. Before the arrival of settlers, the indigenous landscape, water, vegetation, fauna and flora surrounding us today was obviously very different. The wetland systems around this area were swamps and marshlands. Inhabiting this land over many thousands of years were the people from the tribes of the Kulin Nation, who lived a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. They had the skills, knowledge and experience to utilize the natural environmental resources of the land for all manner of purposes. This included food, building shelters, canoes, making tools for hunting, spears and boomerangs, tools for sewing cloths, medicine and musical instruments. The enchanting sounds of musical instruments, like the didgeridoo and clapsticks, were often used to enhance the singing and dancing during gatherings referred to as corroborees. To ensure the ongoing survival of their spiritual and cultural beliefs and traditions, corroborees were held for special or sacred meetings, all kinds of ceremonies, and storytelling of dream times. Corroborees often began with a smoking ceremony, an ancient custom that involves the lighting of fire, the symbol of heat for keeping warm and cooking food, and then adding and burning various native plants to produce smoke. This symbolized cleansing properties, to ward off bad spirits from land and people, and make for a brighter future and pathway. Traditional Aboriginal dancing occurred to tell stories, which were passed down through generations. These stories would be about the land, animals, dream time, and Aboriginal people. The Wurundjeri people believe an ancestral wedge-tailed eagle called Bunjil was the creator of the land. For further information regarding this significant and fascinating culture, we recommend visiting the Koori Heritage Trust and Museum at Federation Square.
This is a Royal Botanic Garden.
Ahead of us, coming up now, is the Swan Street Bridge, which opened in 1952, in time for the 1956 Olympic Games. The bridge was named after the connecting Swan Street on the right. However, Swan Street has been renamed Olympic Boulevard. Due to increased vehicle and pedestrian traffic, the bridge was upgraded in 2018, and an extra laneway was added, and pedestrian and bicycle pathways were widened. Additionally, new feature LED lighting was installed, creating a marvelous spectacle after dark, particularly with the city skyline in the backdrop. This makes for a unique, stunning view, and a favourite picture scene of Melbourne by night. As you can see, there are impressive views of young Melbourne's ever-changing city skyline. There is an amazing assortment of diverse, interesting buildings, architectural styles established during the different periods of time. Many buildings have their own personal and interesting story in time, and are worth a closer look. In this new millennium, there are over 74 skyscrapers, accommodating mainly offices, and now in high demand inner city residential living. In the mix is also a diverse range of shops, venues and theatres that accommodate and support a diverse society that has many interesting lifestyle choices to experience, from impressive parklands, open spaces and landscaped vistas, international cuisines, shopping, cultural art in all forms, sports and entertainment, and many transport options as well. All this make Melbourne a most exciting, livable city and a great place to visit.
cruise. We're going to stop at Federation Wharf first on the right-hand side, then we're going to go to Southgate. We'll be at Federation Wharf until 12, so please keep that in mind. Then we'll go to Southgate. Please yourself which side you get off at. Those who have got tickets for the downstream cruise, stay on board, get your tickets out. We'll come and collect those off you. Cheers.
Whatever your path, we're with you. Australian Super is committed to delivering the best super experience with personalised tools and interactive guides. Visit australiansuper.com/yourpath. Read the PDS and TMD at australiansuper.com.
This straight section in the river is where racing regattas are regularly held. The cement landing on the left is known as the Henley Landing, built for spectators. At the end is the judges' box, which coincides with a marker on the other side, marking the finishing line. A famous regatta on the river is the Henley on the Yarra, modelled on the Henley on the Thames in London. In the early 1900s, people turned out in the thousands, dressed in their finest. It was the social event of the year then, like the Melbourne Cup horse race is today. Overcrowded riverbanks and decorated boats lined both sides of the river to witness this spectacular event. Today, the most popular community event held in Melbourne is the Moomba Festival, held over the long weekend and celebrating the public holiday of Labor Day. During Moomba on the river, they host many water skiing and other events, such as the Birdman Rally, awarding a prize to whoever can fly the furthest in a man-made contraption, jumping off of a high-floating stage before crashing into the river. Coming up around the next bend is another picturesque and iconic view of Melbourne's skyline to look out for. This scenic view is made up of the impressive Victoria Arts Centre spire, architecturally acclaimed Federation Square complex, grandiose Flinders Street railway station in the background, and the oldest and most attractive of the 65 bridges across the river, Prince's Bridge. All are significantly heritage-listed landmarks. Prince's Bridge was opened in 1888 and was the fourth bridge on this site. It features decorative cast iron arches displaying the coats of arms of the local councils who funded this bridge. The arches sit on massive bluestone pillars. The use of bluestone continues around to the northern end of the bridge, making up the facade of the historical vaults, which did originally facilitate and assist all riverboat operators over many years until recently. Before bridges were built to cross the river, people relied on small rowboats. As demand grew, larger punts were built to carry more people, livestock, and wagons across. As demand grew for further trips and services upriver, the first large steam-engine passenger ferry named the Gondola was launched on the 8th of April 1854. This ferry departed this historical site, renamed Federation Wharf at Federation Square. Since the early days of settlement, recreational and transport boating services have traditionally and continuously been provided. This allows access and awareness to experience and appreciate the river and waterways, the lifeblood of Melbourne. Thank you for listening and supporting our services. We greatly appreciate it and hope you have enjoyed your journey upstream on the mighty Yarra River.
Yeah, maybe I should capture you.
is rowing boat. Then there's one trainer boat at the back. The name of the trainer boat is called Usain boat.
I want to take rowing.